Hey there, welcome to episode 138 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is my Masters of the WWE Universe. So if you're not familiar with these things, basically my last, I think 6 or 7 videos that I've done now, I've been reviewing all of my Masters of the Universe Origins figures, which are the brand new line of He-Man figures put out by Mattel. They started coming out kind of late 2019, 2020, but pretty much really they've only hit mass retail in 2021. So I've amassed a pretty large collection just in the past, 9 months or so. So I've showed you in my last bunch of videos each wave of those figures as they came out. And so in my last video, I showed you the last of the Origins figures, and I was debating on whether I should just move on and start posting some G.I. Joe videos again or something. But I figured I'd do this one last video in the under the umbrella of Masters of the Universe. So there is another line produced by Mattel called Masters of the WWE Universe, which is this strange kind of mashup between WWE wrestlers and Masters of the Universe. Why they did this, I don't know. But anyway, I shot all the footage of the figures and stuff a couple of days ago, and now I'm just sitting down to do this introduction. And I'm going to keep it brief because I can't remember everything I said during the video, so I don't want to repeat myself with a bunch of, I just don't want to repeat myself. So anyway, I'll jump right into it, but basically, to give you a little bit of background, me and my brother Doug, my older brother Doug, we collected both wrestling and He-Man figures as a kid, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I only have a handful of these WWE figures because I'm not a big wrestling fan, so yeah, this video only covers, I think, 9 figures, so yeah, we're going to take a look at all those. And I actually hauled out my Macho Man t-shirt for this occasion. And I had this packed away in my, I have this old suitcase packed full of old t-shirts that I no longer fit into. And this one, so that's why I'm a little wrinkly here, because I just pulled this out of the suitcase. But it's definitely going right back into the suitcase, because, this has been in there for a couple of years. And, there's a little part of me that was hoping maybe it'll fit now when I put it back on. But nope, that's definitely not the case. This is very tight and not very comfortable to wear. But anyway, I figured it was appropriate to wear my Macho Man shirt for this WWE video. So anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the Masters of the WWE Universe figures. So I'm going to show you these figures in the order that I got them. So the Masters of the WWE Universe figures actually launched at retail before the Masters of the Universe Origins line had launched. I've heard various rumors as to why, like perhaps WWE was a more established property, so Mattel was kind of seeing if there's any interest in the Masters of the Universe brand before they went full out and launched Masters of the Universe. I don't know if that's true because toys usually go into production, well in advance. But anyway, it did seem a little odd to launch a Masters of the Universe themed wrestling line when probably a lot of kids would have no idea what Masters of the Universe even was. It would make more sense to start with Masters of the Universe, and if it was successful, then introduce this wrestling line, but whatever, that's not really here nor there. Anyway, the first wave of Masters of the WWE Universe figures consisted of Triple H, Sting, The Ultimate Warrior, and Finn Balor. I never saw any of those figures at retail. Then the next wave was John Cena, Rey Mysterio, Roman Reigns, and Randy Savage, the Macho Man. I never saw any of those figures at retail either. The third wave consisted of New Day, The Rock, Braun Strowman, I think his name is, and The Undertaker. I think I saw some of those figures. If memory serves, I think I probably saw the New Day guy on the pegs, and maybe I think I saw Braun Strowman as well. But I wasn't familiar with either of those guys. I was only into wrestling when I was a little kid in the 80s. So like the Hulk Hogan, Macho Man era, that was when I was into wrestling. So any of these guys like Braun Strowman and New Day that came by later, I had no interest in them. And at the time, I still wasn't even sure if I was going to start collecting the Masters of the Universe Origins figures, so I don't know why I would have bought any of those, even though they were kind of this weird little curiosity. Anyway, the fourth wave of figures came out, consisting of Jake the Snake, Bray Wyatt, Mr. T, and Seth Rollins. Now, Jake the Snake and Mr. T are both characters from my childhood, and Jake the Snake was a favorite of mine, so if there was any guy that I was maybe going to cave and buy him if I saw him in the store, it was Jake the Snake. Unfortunately, when Wave 4 hit, Bray Wyatt was the only one I could find on shelf forever, and this is Bray Wyatt. Now, this guy came into wrestling long after I was into it as well. I don't know if I've ever seen this guy wrestle, to be honest with you. I don't know anything about him. So he's known as the Fiend, I guess, and he wears this kind of weird Slipknot-like mask over his face. The only way I might have even seen him is I do have a couple buddies that like to get the Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble, I think it is, every year, and they sometimes invite me over to watch the Royal Rumble, place some bets, and drink some beer. But even when I go over there, it's more about hanging out with the guys, and I don't really care what's going on in the ring. But that's the only way I would have seen any of these more contemporary wrestlers fight. So anyway, I was seeing this guy on the pegs quite a bit, and by this time, when Wave 4 had come out, I was getting kind of curious about this Masters of the Universe Origins line. I was seeing more images of the figures, and it looked like it was going to go pretty deep, like there was going to be multiple waves of figures. And I kind of was starting to think that, I might start buying these things when they come out. And so that made these figures, which were kind of tied into it, a little bit more appealing. But I really wished I could find a character that I cared about, like Macho Man or Jake the Snake. But unfortunately, I could just find this guy. However, there is a pro to this guy in that I don't have any attachment to him. Like, I don't look at this guy and think of my childhood. Like, it's kind of weird to introduce Jake the Snake or Macho Man into my Masters of the Universe world, because Masters of the Universe takes place on, this alien world of Eternia, and why would Macho Man be there? It's kind of weird. But with this guy, after looking at him in the store a few times, I was like, you know what? I don't know who Bray Wyatt is. I wouldn't have any problem integrating this guy into my Masters of the Universe line, and he kind of looks like a monster. This figure doesn't look like that's a mask. That looks like it's his real face. I could imagine this guy working with Skeletor or something, so it didn't seem that far off. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to get this guy, and this will be my introduction into this scale of figure to see if I really do want to collect the Masters of the Universe Origins figures. And I did quite enjoy this guy when I got him. Like, he was cheap. He was fun to play with. He's durable. He's got some fun accessories and some fun features. So yeah, this is the figure that kind of sold me on collecting Masters of the Universe Origins in the first place. So as you can see, he's built the same way as the Masters of the Universe Origins figures. Let me just bring He-Man out here so we can do a little side-by-side comparison. So they are the same scale. They're built. They don't really share too many parts, not as many as all these guys do, but I bet these arms, those arms are probably the exact same. Maybe their upper legs are the exact same. Maybe even some of their torsos. Like, this might be the same torso that He-Man has, just with the shirt painted on it. So, you can see that they'd be kind of affordable for Mattel to produce, because they could, share so many parts. They're interchangeable, so just like with all the Masters of the Universe guys, you can pop their arms and their heads off and stuff. So if you wanted to swap out He-Man's arm and put it on this guy, not that it's a very big difference for this guy, it looks kind of the same. But, you can do that. So that's kind of a cool feature. Now this guy, he's a cool looking character, and he does fit into kind of the fantasy realm because of this creepy face. And my favorite aspect of this figure is the fact that he has an open mouth. You can open his jaw like that. And I don't know if they would have done that for him just because of his creepy face, but each one of these characters, they kind of try to tie it into an existing Masters of the Universe character. So this guy here, I think the closest guy that he's kind of tied to or kind of emulating is Trapjaw. So that would make sense, because Trapjaw always had a movable jaw like that. The other reason that this guy's tied to Trapjaw is, you see, he comes with 2 additional hands, which can kind of be stored on his jacket. He's got these little, there's these little holes on the back of his jacket here. It's not the easiest thing to get in and out of. But, yeah, so there's these holes on his jacket. He's got these extra appendages, so you can pop his hand, or both hands off, and give him these weapons. So yeah, now he's got an axe for a hand, and that's pretty cool. And if we bring his Masters of the Universe counterpart, Trapjaw, in here for a second, I imagine that the pieces, I haven't tried this yet, are probably interchangeable. So you can pop off Trapjaw's gun, and you see that Trapjaw came with a claw and a hook that you can plug into his arm, but I'm sure you could just as easily plug in Bray Wyatt's kind of mace here. You know what? Maybe not. I'm actually noticing these are different pegs. Nope, that doesn't work. That's kind of a bummer. But anyway, would have been cool if it did work. So anyway, there you go. I have nothing to say about this guy as a wrestler, but I think this is a cool looking figure, and I think it's probably one of the better ones that fits in to the Masters of the Universe toy line. And so yeah, this guy is pretty cool. So the next figure I have to show you is Randy Macho Man Savage. And Macho Man is my all-time favorite wrestler. It was probably him, and followed closely by Bret the Hitman Hart, were the guys that I really liked when I was a kid. Macho Man is one of the few wrestlers that I kept my figures of from my childhood, because I had a ton of wrestling figures when I was a kid, but unfortunately I sold most of them off when I was an adolescent. But here is my original LJN Macho Man figure. So these LJN figures from the 80s, they were just big solid hunks of plastic. Like you can see, it's all just one piece. There's no joints. There's no articulation. So different wrestlers came in different poses. Macho Man here has got his arms up, which is great because his winning move was coming off the top rope and delivering an elbow. So it was nice that they had him posed in such a way that he could deliver an elbow. And some people might not like these figures, and I would understand why, but I absolutely love these things. They were just so different than anything else I was collecting, like G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man. And I loved that they were just big, solid hunks of plastic, because you could just bash them together in a way that you couldn't bash anything else together. So you could get a couple of these guys in the wrestling ring and slam them around and throw them over the top rope. And yeah, I love these things. So yeah, that's my LJN Macho Man, which I played with a lot when I was a kid. But LJN eventually lost the license to WWE. And I think it was Hasbro that took over. So me and my brother Doug, we had a whole bunch of these guys. But after Hasbro took over, they went to these smaller figures. And I never liked them as much. I think Macho Man's probably the best of the bunch. Like, I think as far as the sculpting goes and everything with him, I think he works really well and he looks good and his articulation is good. He's got this play feature where he lifts his hands up and he smashes his hands down. And he's pretty cool. But he was small. And even though he's got some articulation now, like he can turn at the waist and the head, he's still pretty stiff. Like if you notice his legs, there's no articulation. You can't make him kick. You can't bend his knees. So they were still rather rigid. And they're really hard plastic. And I was worried that they would break. And I actually did break a few guys. I broke my Jimmy Snuka's head off. I broke my Crush's arm off. So yeah, they're prone to battle damage when you're smashing them against each other. Plus they hurt. They move their hands fast, and the plastic is very hard, that when you accidentally hit your finger with one of their punches, it really hurts. Anyway, love Macho Man. I love these figures of him. So if there was one character that I would want to get in this Masters Universe style, it would have been Macho Man. Now, as much as I wanted him, this guy was part of Wave 2, and at which point I wasn't fully convinced that I was going to collect these things. But I knew if I saw Macho Man, I would probably pick him up. And actually, my buddy Andrew, who passed away last year, the last conversation we really had was he found Macho Man and Rey Mysterio at Toys R Us, and he texted me to show me that he got them, and then we had a little conversation about them, and he kind of convinced me that, yeah, I did kind of want these figures. So after that conversation, then after Andrew passed away, just a few days later, I kind of linked, kind of my final memory of Andrew to like the Macho Man and the Rey Mysterio figure. So I was even more determined to get these guys in my collection. So by the time Wave 4 had come out, and I got that Bray Wyatt figure, which I liked, they'd announced Wave 5, which actually had a new version of Macho Man. So if I just wanted the character, I probably could have just held out and got the Wave 5 version. But since this was the version that Andrew had, and I really like that he's wearing his purple Macho Man shirt here, that this was the version I wanted to seek out. So since I never saw it in stores anywhere myself, I went to eBay which is something I don't do very often. I used to do that a lot, like probably 10 years ago, but I hardly ever buy anything on eBay anymore. But I turned to eBay, and I found a guy that was selling these things, and in order to get the most bang for my buck, I found a guy that was selling multiples, and it was a good price. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, I bought 4 of these figures off of this dude on eBay, and so, yeah, I'll show you all of them. But Macho Man was the one I wanted most. And yeah, so as far as the look of this figure, I think it's great that he's wearing this Macho Man t-shirt. Because Macho Man in real life, this was the shirt that he sold when you go to his events. It was a purple t-shirt, and the imaging was this pair of sunglasses, because he always wore these sunglasses, with Macho Man right there in the graphic, and then it said Macho Man. And so yeah, the fact that they've got him wearing his own t-shirt is really cool. Now, as I talked about with Bray Wyatt, they always try and kind of make these characters emulate a Masters of the Universe character. So this guy's clearly emulating Man-at-Arms. Like if I bring Man-at-Arms out here, he's got, for one, he's got a mace just like Man-at-Arms. Strangely enough, it's not the same sculpt. It's a whole new sculpt here. The armor, they're different as well. Like you can see, it's the same style of armor, but the little rivets at the top of the knee there are much smaller than the big ones he's got. Plus, Macho Man's got 2 rivets. And he also has a helmet. Now, Man-at-Arms' helmet is not removable here. It's part of the sculpt. But with Macho Man, you can actually pop that helmet off. So that's pretty cool. So the thing that's a little odd about this figure, though, is that, so he's supposed to be Man-at-Arms. So why does he not have Man-at-Arms chest armor? I don't know. Maybe it's just because of this t-shirt design, and the toy designers thought they had an opportunity there to do something cool, which they did. I actually showed you this already in one of my previous Masters of the Universe videos, but I'll just show you it quickly again. This chest armor here, it's supposed to kind of reproduce the battle damage effect of the vintage battle armor He-Man and Skeletor figures. So if he gets hit once, you can take that panel of the sunglasses and replace it with this version with the cracked sunglasses. And then if he gets hit again, he gets this one where the sunglasses are shattered. So you can switch those out, and I think that's like super cool. Now, by the time they actually got around to releasing Battle Armor, Skeletor, and He-Man, they had improved the effect, so it's actually, now it works just like it did in the vintage toy line, where if you hit it with your finger or with a weapon or something, it flips around and you see the battle damage right on there, and if you hit it again, it flips, and now there's 2 battle damage, and then you can just roll this thing back to get back to the original. So it would have been nice if Macho Man had that same feature rather than having to change out the panel, because yeah, I don't see myself changing out the panel, and even if I was a kid that played with these things, it's kind of a nuisance to have to take his armor off and switch out the panel just to show some battle damage. But I do appreciate the kind of the thought process that went behind it. So anyway, that's Macho Man. I think he's great. I love the sculpt on the face. I love the little orange shorts with the stars. Macho Man right there on his butt. Really cool stuff. I like this figure a lot. So another one of the figures that I bought off of eBay is this Rey Mysterio, who is dressed as Stratos. Now, Rey Mysterio was the other figure that my buddy Andrew had, so I was really happy to be able to get both of these figures, in one fell swoop from one seller. And yeah, I think this is a really fun figure. Now, Rey Mysterio is another wrestler that came along after I was long out of wrestling by that point. I haven't been interested in wrestling since I was maybe 11 years old or something. But even though I don't follow it very closely, my older brother's still into it a bit more, and I can still appreciate a fun character and all that stuff. And Rey Mysterio seems like a great character. I'm sure I would have loved him when I was a kid if he had been wrestling in the 80s in the WWF, because he was kind of a high flyer, jumping off the ropes, and I loved that stuff. I loved the Rockers back in the day. High flyers were just a lot of fun to watch. So, seeing as that he is a high flyer, it would make sense that they paired him with Stratos, the Birdman from Masters of the Universe. So here is Stratos. So you can see here, he's got the little wings that clip on to his wrist, as does Rey Mysterio. But oddly enough, his wings are different. They're much larger. And some of this stuff, to be honest, I'm just noticing for the first time. I've had some of these, I've had both these figures for a while, but I've never really stood them side by side. And like with Macho Man, I was quite certain that him and Man-at-Arms would have the same club and the same leg armor, but they don't. And with Mysterio, I'm surprised to see that the wings are similar but different, and so is the kind of harness that they wear around their torso. So they both have the kind of feathery pattern, almost looks like a maple leaf on the shoulders, but you can see how different the harness is for him compared to Stratos. And you turn him around, he's got the two little rockets on there, as does Rey Mysterio, but those are different as well. Rey Mysterio's rockets are bigger and more detailed. So that's kind of curious that they went through the trouble of making them different when they could have just cheaped out and probably made them the same. But anyway, so that's pretty cool. And even if he wasn't a Masters of the Universe kind of homage figure, Rey Mysterio wears crazy stuff like this anyway. Now, he doesn't necessarily wear wings and a jetpack, but he wears such crazy outfits that it doesn't look that far out of the realm of possibility. And I think this guy just looks cool. This is probably another one of the more successful transitions from wrestling to Masters of the Universe. I could really believe that this guy existed in the Masters of the Universe. He looks like he could be somebody that would hang out with Zodak or something. Anyway, I think it's a really cool figure. It's one of my favorites for sure. So this is another figure that I got off of eBay. So this is Jake the Snake. He was part of Wave 4, the same wave as Bray Wyatt. So Mysterio and Macho Man were both Wave 2 figures. I still don't have anything from Wave 1. I don't have anything from Wave 3, but now I'm getting into Wave 4. And so Jake the Snake, like I said, he was one of my favorites when we were kids. He was my older brother Doug's favorite wrestler. I believe, like, we've seen Jake the Snake wrestle, even back in the heyday, back in the 80s. We saw him fight Ravishing Rick Rude. And I think we went to actually go see him as adults. Like I said, my brother is still kind of a wrestling fan, and sometimes these kind of old wrestlers still come through town and wrestle with some of the local promotions. And a couple of years ago, we went to see Jake the Snake, but I think he had some trouble crossing the border, and we didn't actually get to see him, so that's kind of too bad. But anyway, this Jake the Snake figure is pretty cool, and it's very reminiscent of the Jake the Snake figures that we had when we were a kid. Like, he's wearing the green and purple pants. He wore lots of crazy outfits over his career, but those are the colors I associate with him because those are the colors of the action figure. And, he's got his mullet, he's got his mustache. He looks great. He's actually got the same armor as Macho Man. So you see there that sculpt. It's painted quite a bit different, but he also has the removable panel. I don't think he has additional panels where you could change that snake out. It's possible, where I got this secondhand and they were all open when I got them. So maybe the guy that sold it to me didn't give me the panels, but I don't think so. So, but he's a pretty cool figure. So I don't know, since he's got the battle armor chest plate, but it doesn't inflict battle damage, you might be thinking, well, who's this guy supposed to be emulating then? And the closest thing I can tell is he's supposed to be King Hiss, and that would make total sense. I don't have the vintage King Hiss here. Now, I do have the classics version of King Hiss, which I could show you, but his feature doesn't work the same way as the vintage figure did. With the vintage King Hiss, he was a man, but he was a snake guy inside, and you popped his torso off, and there were snakes inside of his body. Now, with Jake the Snake here, his whole torso doesn't pop off to reveal a whole snake body, but you can kind of see it creeping out there around his face, but he's wearing a human mask, so you actually pop his face off. You gotta get a nail in there or something, and then the face comes off, and now he's a snake guy underneath. So that's very true to King Hiss, who would wear a human disguise, and really he was a serpent. So that's kind of cool. Now, I do think the snake face is pretty ridiculous looking. Not only does he have a mustache, which is ridiculous, but his nose is kind of squished there. I don't think it looks particularly snaky, but I guess you had to do what you had to do in order for that to fit underneath of the mask. They had to keep that face very flat. But yeah, it looks a little silly. So I prefer Jake the Snake with his face on. But it's a pretty cool figure. And for accessories, he also came with, I assume this is supposed to be Damien. I think he had a couple of snakes. There was Damien and then Lucifer, I think. And anyway, I refer to this one as Damien. That's the snake I remember him having. So this thing here is kind of a soft rubber thing here that you can kind of contort and stuff. But it's a pretty nice Pretty nice sculpt for his snake as well. And you can drape that over his shoulders. And that's pretty cool. I dig it. So the last of the 4 figures that I bought off of eBay is Mr. T. Now, some people might be wondering what the hell is Mr. T doing in this toy line, because he was never really a WWE or WWF wrestler, but sometimes the WWF did bring celebrities in, and Mr. T did come in to WrestleMania. It was one of the early WrestleManias. I don't remember if it was maybe the very first one, maybe number 2. But yeah, so Mr. T does have some history with wrestling, and regardless, I think it's really cool that they included him here. I love Mr. T. He's an 80s icon. I grew up watching the A-Team, and I loved him in Rocky. So yeah, I think it's really cool to have him here. So yeah, let's look at this guy. So great head sculpt, lots of personality in there. And yeah, I really like the look and the color scheme for him. It's all really cool. Now I was going to say his hand fell off, but it's not really his hand. It's more like a glove. So that's his feature. So he's got his regular arms underneath there, but then he's got this glove here, which just kind of slides over top, and it's like a karate chopping hand. And same thing over here. He's got another standard hand underneath there, so he can hold on to weapons and stuff. But then he's got this gold glove that gives him a big oversized gold fist. So that's pretty cool. And if you're wondering, well, who is he supposed to be? He's clearly supposed to be Fisto and also Jitsu. So Fisto, who I have here, he was like the hero character who had the big metal fist. And then his enemy was Jitsu, who was the kind of evil martial artist who had a big like golden karate chopping hand. Now, they actually haven't made Jitsu yet in the Origins line. I think he's been announced for Wave 6 or Wave 7. But, yeah, we don't have him yet. But it's kind of cool that they took Mr. T. And, you know, I would have, if I was thinking of making this line, I would have said, yeah, let's make Mr. T Fisto and give him the fist. But the fact that they made him Fisto and Jitsu, I think is really great. I love that he's got both of those gloves. As for the armor, it's kind of an homage to Fisto. Like you can see, it's got that kind of collar with those big rivets or whatever around it, but I think otherwise it's unique to Mr. T. I don't know if he shares that with anybody else, or if it's supposed to be more like if it's more similar to anybody else. Maybe it looks like King Randor's or something. I don't know. I don't have it as reference, but anyway, it's cool armor, and I love how all these colors just tie together. And yeah, this is another really cool figure. So next up is the Ultimate Warrior. Now this guy was part of Wave 6. So if you've been keeping track, I didn't have any of Wave 1 or 2 initially because I never saw them in stores. Wave 3 was the first one that I kind of had seen around. I didn't buy anybody from Wave 3 because they didn't really interest me. I went back and got Macho Man and Mysterio from Wave 2. Wave 4, I did see it around, and I chose to buy Jake, Mr. T, and Bray Wyatt, but I didn't get Seth Rollins. Now, when it came to Wave 5, I totally would have bought that whole wave because it has Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who I love. It had another version of Macho Man. It had Becky Lynch, who I don't know a whole lot about, but it also had Roddy Piper, who was another 80s classic. Now, I don't know why, but Wave 5 never showed up. I never saw it in any stores in my area. We just went from having a bunch of Bray Wyatts on the shelf from Wave 4 to all of a sudden Wave 6 was everywhere. So I was able to buy all 4 figures from Wave 6 right off the shelf. I didn't have to go to eBay, or I didn't have to go to an online retailer. And I still see these guys in stores to this day. So hopefully there's 2 more waves announced. Wave 7 is supposed to have Junkyard Dog, Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter, and Bret the Hitman Hart. And Wave 8 is Stone Cold Steve Austin, another Rey Mysterio, and Chyna. So I would actually like to have all those figures, because with the exception of Stone Cold and Mysterio, I guess. But like Wave 7 especially, that's all 80s guys. Junkyard Dog and the Hitman and stuff. So yeah, hopefully I can find all them. Hopefully they're as easy to find as Wave 6 was. But anyway, so the 4 figures from Wave 6 are the last ones that I have to talk about in this video, starting with the Ultimate Warrior. So it's nice to get him because he was originally included in Wave 1, and I missed out on him, and he's definitely a character that I liked as a kid and I would have wanted in this line. So I'm glad about that. And actually, I guess I should mention, because if you're an 80s wrestling fan, like no wrestling collection from the 80s is complete without Hulk Hogan. So they did actually make a Hulk Hogan and a Stone Cold Steve Austin. They came with the Snake Mountain Wrestling Ring, which I have yet to see in stores anywhere, and I probably won't. And there was also a John Cena and a Triple H that came with the Castle Grayskull Wrestling Ring, which I haven't seen either. I did see the Castle Grayskull ring for sale once. I wish I had picked it up because it was only like $30, but I passed on it. But it was the version that didn't come with any figures. If it was the one that came with Cena and Triple H, I definitely would have grabbed it. But anyway, so back to the Ultimate Warrior. So this is a great looking figure. He's got all the little tassels hanging off him like you'd expect to see on the Ultimate Warrior. All this frill on his boots. It's a really nice sculpt. And this is another one it's not too fantastical. If you maybe took this, he's got this like furry cloak. If you took that off, this would kind of just look like a normal Ultimate Warrior figure. Like it passes as just a wrestling figure because he wore this crazy makeup and all this crazy shit anyway. So yeah, it's pretty cool. As for this furry cape and this armor, I don't really know who he's supposed to be. Same as he's got this like skull necklace. And I think I talked about this figure in another video when I first got it, and I probably was just as like stumped there, and I don't know if anybody ever made a suggestion to me, but King Grayskull wears a furry cloak like this, so maybe that's who he's supposed to be. But either way, I'm fine with them kind of getting away from direct homages, especially I think this line is wrapping up with Wave 8 because they've already announced that they're going to do a new, another line of figures is going to be taking over. They're still going to be on the same sculpt and they're still going to be compatible, but they're just wrestling figures now. There's no more ties to the Masters of the Universe. So if this line had gone on though, there's only so many gimmicks that they could borrow from Masters of the Universe characters. So yeah, if this guy is just kind of themed in the basic, barbarian look with no specific homage, I'm fine with that. I think it looks cool. I like the colors. Yeah, but what more is there to be said? I think Ultimate Warrior is pretty great, and I'm glad we got a second chance to get this character. So next up is Stephanie McMahon. So I'm familiar with Stephanie, but she kind of came around after I stopped watching wrestling as well. Vince McMahon was always around back in the 80s, but he was just kind of portrayed as just one of the ringside announcers who did interviews backstage and stuff. They didn't really get into the fact that he owned the company and all that stuff. And him becoming Mr. McMahon and being this arrogant, bad guy, that all happened after the fact. And that's when he brought in his son and his daughter and all that stuff. So I'm aware of it all, but yeah, I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. So, I appreciate Stephanie McMahon and her place in the WWE history. And so I understand why they stuck her in this line here. And this is a pretty cool figure. Now, when I got this figure, each of these toys, they come with a mini comic, the same way that the Masters of the Universe Origins figures do, but they're very brief. Like the Masters of the Universe comic books are about 4 or 6 pages, and there's just a very little bit of storyline in there, a little bit of text. When it comes to the wrestling ones, they're literally like just 2 pages. You open it up, it's like a little pamphlet. You don't have to turn any pages. It's a folded piece of paper essentially. And then there's a little bit of a comic book in there, and there's no dialogue. So you just kind of have to look at the pictures and piece the story together. But when I got Stephanie McMahon and I looked at her little comic book that she came with, it made me, kind of bummed out that I don't have the Triple H figure from Wave 1. Because the Wave 1 Triple H had a helmet very similar to this, with the skull face and this kind of like hanging chainmail. And I don't know who that's necessarily. I guess it's supposed to be kind of like Skeletor. But apparently the storyline that I gathered from the wordless comic book is that Triple H wore this skull crown or something, and then he died. And so now Stephanie McMahon found the skull crown, and now she put it on. So it kind of ties it all together, and that's pretty neat. So, yeah, this figure, it's obviously got a different body type than the other guys we showed you, because this is the female figure, so it's a lot more slender. And she's kind of an homage to Evil Lynn. Not so much in the outfit. Yeah, you do see that little pattern there on On her waist, she's got the same thing, but they don't seem to share too much in the way of sculpted pieces. Well, I don't know, I might have spoke too soon. The wrist guards there, yeah, they probably have the same arms, actually. And, maybe the same upper legs there as well. But the weapon, let's see, I'm assuming, nope, they're not the same. They look like they could be, but you can see Stephanie McMahon's is made of like bone in the handle, where Eva Lynn's is just kind of a straight cylinder. And then you can remove the skull mask, which has these like metallic blue eyes, but this just pops out really easily. And clearly you can see the homage to Eva Lynn in the helmet here. So, very similar. But yeah, it's a nice figure. I think the paint job on the face is pretty nice. Like, these figures are kind of simple, but yeah, I think they still managed to pull off like an attractive female face there, which is more than I can really say they did for Eva Lynn. She looks a little wonky and a little simple, but I think it looks a lot better on Stephanie here. So yeah, pretty cool. Another neat figure. I like the color scheme. The black and silver looks really good together. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about her. So next up we have Kane. Again, this guy came around a little bit after my time, but I'm quite familiar with him. I assume he's still supposed to be the evil brother of The Undertaker or whatever. But yeah, Kane always had a cool look about him. I liked that mask that he wore. And yeah, so this is a cool figure. And he's another guy that seems to fit in with the Masters of the Universe pretty good. Like he's not like the Macho Man, just a guy running around in little shorts with stars on him. He looks like some sort of creature. And, the character that they've tied him into, like you can see he's got these mechanical features all over his hand. And he's got this hook for a hand. So he's modeled after Roboto. So the arm, it's actually the exact same arm if you look at all the sculpted detail in there. The legs are the same as well. They've got the same boots. And even though these features aren't painted on Kane, you can see that they share the same sculpt. They didn't give him a clear torso. I don't know why, but that might have been kind of cool. But one thing I kind of like about this Kane figure is just how much he looks kind of like just a straight Kane figure. If you ignore the techno doodads all over his arm, it kind of just looks like Kane. Now his hair is kind of weird. He's got this like translucent hair, and it kind of transitions from brown to this kind of translucent orange. I'm not sure what that's all about, but it doesn't look bad. Now you'll see he's got a hook for a hand here. I don't think he came with a human hand that you could swap it out with, but he did come with this gun and this blast effect, which is removable. So the gun is just like the gun that you're seeing there on Roboto. So you can use this to plug it right into his hand, but then he doesn't have anywhere to store this hook. So if I put the gun on him, then the hook is just kind of left to its in my spare parts bin. So one thing I do like is that you can fit the gun. It's got a handle and you can hold it with his hook. He can't hold it with his hand because it's an open palm, but that works. So that way I can use the hook and the gun, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, I think Kane is another successful figure, and I like him quite a bit. So this here is the last of my Masters of the WWE Universe figures. This is Goldberg, and he is dressed up essentially as Ram Man. Now, I really like Goldberg, and I don't even know why. He came along after I was into wrestling, and I don't think he really stuck around that long. So I really haven't seen much of his wrestling at all, like maybe a match or two, and I don't know much about the guy, but I just always I just like him. I don't know why. And even though I don't buy modern wrestling figures, like I haven't really bought wrestling figures since I was a kid in the 80s, I do have a modern Goldberg figure. So this would have been one of the ones manufactured by, I believe it's from Jax, because they're the company that held the wrestling license for many, many years. And yeah, so I like Goldberg. I like him enough to get an actual figure of him in the modern era, and he's like literally the only wrestling figure I have in this style, which is like a standard 6-inch action figure. So yeah, I was happy to get him in this format as well, and I think he works well as Ram Man. So if I bring in Ram Man here, you can see obviously the similarities in the armor. So he's got these kind of chains that come around. They've got these buckles. Now his buckles are plain. Goldberg's have these little skulls on them, but you can see how the skulls are reminiscent of the belt buckle he has there. So it's not, the exact armor, but it's a nice homage to it. Same as the helmet. You can see by the shape of like the hole in the helmet that you can see through. It's the same, but it's not, it's not the exact same helmet. This has got more rivets. He's got some more details here. This little spike on the top. So it's very cool. And he has the exact same axe as Ray Man. Ray Man came with 2 axes, both the double blade and the single blade. But the single blade axe he has here is the same one that Goldberg came with. So that's where you get your Ram Man homage. The armor comes off as well as the helmet. So there you go. There's a standard Goldberg head underneath. And yeah, I think he's pretty great. These guys all have the same articulation. I've talked about these guys plenty. This is, I think, the 7th or 8th Masters of the Universe Origins video I've done in a row. And I'm actually pretty happy to move on and stop talking about these guys after this video. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Goldberg. I like all these WWE figures. And honestly, if I saw all the other ones that I'm missing in store, I would probably buy them all. Even characters that I didn't really like, or characters like Roman Reigns, who I know nothing about and have no attachment to. I just think they're kind of fun because they blend in quite well with the Masters of the Universe characters, and they just kind of help populate my Snake Mountain and my Castle Grayskull. And so yeah, pretty cool figures. And yeah, this is Goldberg. So that is my review of my Masters of the WWE Universe figures. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button and leave me comments below as well. That's much appreciated. And yeah, so I'll be back soon with another video, but we are done with Masters of the Universe for the time being. I'm not sure when Wave 6 will be hitting, but I'll be sure to post a video when it does. But in the meantime, I can finally get back to reviewing some of the G.I. Joes and Star Wars Black Series and reaction figures and other odds and ends that I've had kind of piling up while I've been spending all this time doing Masters of the Universe videos. So anyway, thank you again for watching, and I will see you soon. Ciao.